We will discuss about the lesions in the small intestine. As you know that the small intestine is 5.5 to 6.5 meters, which includes duodenum, jejunum and ileum. Histologically, the small intestine it is recognized by the villi. Although its wall consists of 4 layers, serous layer, muscularis propria, here the 2 layers in which there are the ganglionic plexus of nerve. Then there is a submucosal layer which is of loose firm fibrous tissue with blood vessels, and then there is a mucosal layer. Mucosal layer consists of glandular epithelium which overlies the lamina propria, the loose connective tissue layer, in which there are abundant phagocytic cells and evidence of lymphoid cells called Pierce patches, and there is a supporting externally a thin layer of muscle fiber called muscularis mucosa. This glandular epithelium or mucous membrane is thrown into folds. It is much more in jejunum, and in ileum it is very less. This is for to increase the absorptive surface. These folds have been increased by the intestinal villi. These are the finger-like projections which contains 3 types of cells: simple columnar cells with brushed borders which does the work of absorption, goblet cells, the mucus secreting cells in between the columnar cells, and there are endocrinal cells which are scattered and more in the proximal bowel. It has got various names after the name of discoverer. It is called Kolchevsky cells, enterochromaffin cells because of its resemblance to the chromaffin cells of the medulla, argentaffin cells because they are stained by silver salts, and then there is a endocrinal cells because they are the part of the amine precursor update and decarboxylation cells. So besides this, duodenum contains the branched Brunner's glands, and the mucosa of the small intestine also contains crypts of Lieberkühn, what we call intestinal glands. These intestinal glands is lined by the columnar cells, goblet cells, endocrinal cells and Paneth cells, which is normal in a small, normally they are in the small intestine, these Paneth cells. So the function of the small intestine is the digestion and absorption and regeneration of the mucosal layer. So there is a well developed immune system in the intestine which is called mucosa associated lymphoid tissue, that is MALT in short. This intestinal immune system consists of nodules of lymphoid tissue in mucosa and submucosa as a Pierce patches, mucosal lymphocytes and intraepithelial lymphocytes. Besides this, T helper cells, CD4 cells and educated beta cells in submucosa. These gives a very strong immune system in the intestine. Now coming to the lesions, first there is a congenital anomalies which is since birth. There may be duplication of the small intestine, that is whole intestine lumen is divided into 2 halves, and second is the malrotation of entire bowel. Due to improper embryonic rotation of the gut, there is a malrotation of entire bowel segment. Omphalocele, sometimes there is a deficiency of anterior abdominal wall, therefore the urinary bladder is exposed to the outside. Heterotrophic rests of normal pancreatic tissue as a small 1 to 2 centimeter size nodules are found in abnormal gut location. Atresia, much more in duodenum and jejunum. This atresia means complete closure or absence of the lumen in the duodenal or intestinal jejunum part, leading to a case of intestinal obstruction. or there may be stenosis in which the lumen becomes, there is an incomplete closure, therefore the lumen of the intestine becomes short. So imperforated anus, just before delivery the cloacal and diaphragm gets ruptured and there is a formation of the anal canal. So sometimes what happens, that failure of the cloacal diaphragm to rupture, leading to a case of imperforate anus, which is again a case or makes a case of intestinal obstruction in the newborns. Meckel's diverticulum, it is the failure of the closure of the vitelo-intestinal duct which connects the lumen and of developing gut to the yolk sac. It is found on the antimesenteric border of the bowel within 2 feet of the ileocecal valve. It is true diverticulum because there are all the layers of a normal bowel. It occurs in 2% of the normal births. So complication is hemorrhage occurs whenever there is heterotrophic rest of gastric mucosa in this persistent vitelo-intestinal duct, that is called Meckel's diverticulum. Then there is a congenital aganglionic megacolon, that is absence of ganglion cells in the mucosa and in the submucosa leads to functional obstruction and colonic dilatation proximal to the segment of the affected part. So the newborn fails to pass the meconium, there is distension of abdomen and later on there is a enterocolitis. This congenital form is called Hirschsprung's disease. So it can be acquired in acquired condition also, what we call acquired megacolon due to certain diseases like Chagas disease and organic destruction of these neurons by the neoplasm and inflammatory stricture. So in all these conditions the neurons in the mucosa and submucosa they get destroyed, and then there is a toxic megacolon, that is a complication of ulcerative colitis, one of the idiopathic inflammatory bowel disease I will discuss just now. So these are the acquired megacolon, cause of acquired megacolon. Now the intestinal obstruction. So this intestinal obstruction about you will study more details in the surgery because it makes a very acute conditions. This intestinal obstruction is a condition in which the propulsion of the contents in the intestine is interfered. That means the contents in the intestine does not move forward. So most affected areas are in the small intestine and its causes may be mechanical obstruction or neurogenic obstruction. Among the mechanical obstruction, 80% cause is because of hernia, adhesion, volvulus and interruption. We will discuss one by one in short because details you will be studying in surgery. Then hernia, it is a defect or weakness in the abdominal wall which permits the protrusion of a part of viscus in a pouch-like serous-lined sac of peritoneum, what we call hernial sac. You know that the weak point in the abdomen is inguinal canal, femoral canal, umbilicus itself, and when the operation, any laparotomy is done, then the surgical scar becomes a very weak point. So from these weak points, the part of a abdominal organ protrudes out and sometimes they can be trapped permanently outside, leading to a condition of intestinal obstruction. So from inguinal canal, you know that there are superficial inguinal ring and deep inguinal ring. When the abdominal contents directly comes out from the superficial inguinal ring, it becomes direct external inguinal hernia. Indirect inguinal hernia, when it traverses whole of the inguinal column, from the deep inguinal ring to the superficial inguinal ring, and then it comes out into the scrotum. You must have heard or seen these types of hernias very frequently in the wards. Besides that, there may be internal inside the abdomen following any surgical operations or any inflammation in the peritoneal cavity, which heals by fibrosis and adhesions. So these fibrosis and adhesions are formed between the intestinal loop and between the different loops of the intestine, and there is a loop is formed in which the part of the abdominal organ is again trapped. So the complications of hernia is very noticeable, that obstruction itself, intestinal, it causes intestinal obstruction. Then when the venous drainage is impaired at the neck of the pouch, it becomes incarceration. A strangulated hernia, when there is a compromise with the arterial supply, and when these strangulation takes place, there is infarction develops, cutting of the blood vessel, blood supply to this part, protruded part of the abdominal organ, which again becomes very serious and emergency treatment is needed. And next cause of intestinal obstruction is interruption. When one segment of the small bowel gets telescoped into by a wave of peristalsis, and it gets telescoped into the distal segment of the bowel. Site is ileocecal region in infants, where you must have seen that telescope to see the distant object, in which there are two barrels. One barrel goes inside the another barrel. Similarly here, the proximal loop, when gets constricted by a wave of peristalsis, in that very time it goes telescoped inside the distal segment, and when there is a further peristaltic wave, this proximal segment of the bowel goes deeper into the distal segment, making it a case of obstruction, and if it progresses further, that leads to infarction, cause of which is not known. Then volvulus, when there is a complete twisting of one of loop of intestine on its own mesentery base at 180 degree, then again the intestinal obstruction sets in and infarction is there. Sigmoid colon is the worst sufferer in this cause of volvulus. Besides this, there are other causes of this intestinal obstruction like tumors, inflammatory structures, congenital atresia, imperforate anus, as I have already told you. This neurogenic obstruction is because of paralytic ileus post-operatively or after any shock. There is paralysis of intestinal muscle wall causing this intestinal obstruction. Now we will study about the infection of the small and large bowel, which we call enterocolitis, that is the inflammation of the small and large intestine. This enterocolitis can be of two types: ischemic origin and infective origin. Ischemic origin is because of vascular disorders, and infective because of the parasites, bacteria and viruses. It causes inflammation. So ischemic lesion of the small and large intestine occurs depends upon which type of particular vessel is affected. If there is an acute occlusion of the one of the vessels which supply the intestine, like celiac artery, superior mesenteric artery, inferior mesenteric artery, that leads to infarction of the small several inches of the intestine. But focal lesions are seen in the gut wall when end arteries are affected. So accordingly, the injury is of three types: transmural infarction, when all visceral layers are involved by mechanical compromise of the mesenteric arteries. Mucosal and submucosal infarction of mucosa and submucosa is caused by the hypoperfusion or by the when the end arteries are involved. In transmural, all the layers are involved, whereas in mural infarction, mucosa and submucosa, and in mucosal infarction, only the mucosa is involved. Predisposing condition for this ischemia is belongs to vascular disorder like arterial thrombosis, as in atherosclerosis, arterial embolism because of cardiac vegetation, venous thrombosis because of the use of oral contraceptives, and abdominal trauma. Sometimes there may be non-occlusive ischemia like cardiac failure and dehydration. So morphology, it depends upon the time frame and the severity of the vascular lesion which develops, determine the morphology of the disease. Transmural in acute condition, in early stages, the infarcted bowel segment becomes congested, dusty or purple red. Some mucosal and some serosal ecchymosis is there. As the time progresses, wall becomes edematous, thick, and the lumen contains serous and frank blood. In arterial occlusion, there is a sharp demarcation between the normal segment and the disease segment, whereas in venous occlusion, no such demarcation is seen. Histologically, when you examine the slides, edema, interstitial hemorrhage, sloughing necrosis on progress, these types of inflammation leads to superinfection with intestinal bacteria and produces gangrene and then perforation. So this becomes very acute condition again. Mucosal and mural infection takes place in mucosal and mural type of this ischemic injury leads to darkened or purple area of the affected segment. Hemorrhage and inflammatory exudate are absent from serous surface and hemorrhagic edematous thickening of the mucosa. Clinically, there is a severe abdominal pain when there is a transmural affection with presenting with nausea, vomiting, bloody diarrhea. But in mural and mucosal infarction, there is a vague abdominal pain with intermittent bloody diarrhea. There is one more ischemic origin condition, that is necrotizing enterocolitis in premature and newborn infants who are low birth weight babies in the first 3 months of life. When the baby starts taking oral feeds, there is a immaturity of the gut immunity. On oral feeding, pro-inflammatory factors are released by cytokines present in intestinal mucosa, and therefore the gut colonization with bacteria takes place, and there is a site is terminal ileum and the ascending colon. Mucosa becomes edematous, hemorrhagic and necrosis. On progress, full thickness of the mucosa becomes hemorrhagic and inflamed. Diarrhea with frank blood with abdominal pain. Nowadays, the antibiotics are widely used without any consent with the doctor, so that also leads to a condition called antibiotic associated colitis or pseudomembranous colitis. It is an acute colitis in which there is a formation of adherent inflammatory exudate called pseudomembrane over the site of the mucosal injury. It is a plaque-like adhesion of fibrinopurulent necrotic debris of mucins. There are no epithelial layers in the membrane, hence it is called pseudomembrane. After the use of broad spectrum antibiotic, normal bacterial flora which are friendly to intestines, they are disturbed, and in place of that, toxin producing strains of bacteria flourishes there who are responsible for this pseudomembrane. Therefore, these days pre and postbiotic combinations are there consisting of normal friendly bacteria which has been introduced just to replace this toxin producing strains of bacteria. Now infective enterocolitis, that is causes inflammation. It causes inflammatory lesions. Other than there are two notorious idiopathic inflammatory disease, that is of which cause is not known. Main presentation in them in these infective enterocolitis is diarrhea and dysentery. Diarrhea is called whenever there is variation in normal bowel habits, like increased stool mass, stool frequency is increased, and the stool fluidity is changed. That is the diarrhea. And dysentery, when patient passes low volume stools but they are very painful and with the presence of blood. So there is a principal mechanism of diarrhea. When the diarrhea occurs, there may be secretory diarrhea. When there is a viral damage to mucosal epithelium, then there is diarrhea called secretory diarrhea. Osmotic diarrhea by solutes in the cells increases the osmotic pressure. Exudative diarrhea by the mucosal damage. Malabsorption, when there is no proper absorption from the mucous membrane of the intestine, it takes place. Deranged motility, these are all causes of diarrhea. So infectious enterocolitis caused by the microbial organisms is still a global problem in underdeveloped countries because of the death from dehydration, whereas in developed countries it is secondary to the common cold problem. So this infective enterocolitis caused by microbial organisms belongs to viral origin or bacterial origin. From the virus, they are the rotavirus and Norwalk virus. Rotavirus, it is very common between 6 to 24 months. These viruses damages the mucous epithelium. Another is Norwalk viruses. Whereas the bacterial origin, there are a group of bacteria which causes this diarrhea. So it depends upon the type of bacteria involved. So Staph aureus and Clostridium perfringens, they are the bacteria which produces toxins in the contaminated food. Vibrio cholera, the bacteria produces an enterotoxin bacteria and it proliferates in the gut lumen, and these enterotoxins are produced, is responsible for activation of electrolyte secretion with water. There are no pathological changes if this Vibrio cholera is affecting the cause of diarrhea. Then there is a intro-invasive bacteria like Salmonella and Shigella. As the name suggests that they invade the epithelial lining cells. There they are lodged and proliferates. Cell is lysed and there is a cell-to-cell spread to lamina propria and reaches to Pierce passage, which becomes swollen and ulcerated. The site is ileum and colon, which causes diarrhea. Similarly, Shigella is an acute inflammation of the mucosa with purulent exudate. Shigella affects the distal colon. Similarly, intestinal tuberculosis is also a cause of diarrhea. There is no primary intestinal tuberculosis. It is always secondary when the patient swallows his own cough, who has got a primary complex in the chest or lungs tuberculosis. Then in terminal ileum, these bacteria lodges in the Pierce patches. Because tubercles are seen in the intestine, there is a long transverse ulcer in the long axis of the bowel. There may be hyperplastic cecal tuberculosis, a form of secondary tuberculosis in which the cecum becomes thick-walled and there are ulcers on the wall also. So this intestinal tuberculosis is also responsible for diarrhea. Next is the sometimes acute infection of the small intestines takes by Salmonella typhi, Salmonella paratyphi. The fever is also there, which is called typhoid fever or enteric fever. Besides this diarrhea condition in the patient, there is another group of Salmonella, that is Salmonella typhimurium, which is responsible for only food poisoning. What happens that typhoid bacilli, when they reaches in the gut with the contaminated food, after ingestion there is a asymptomatic period for 2 weeks, because during this period this bacteria enters into the lymphoid follicles and there it proliferates. After 2 weeks it enters into the bloodstream, causing a stage of bacteremia in which the patient gets fever or a step ladder type of fever. Classical pattern of the fever in typhoid fever, and along with there is a rose spots on skin, and when you do a test, blood agglutination test, what we call Vidal test, then it comes positive for these Salmonella typhus. Bacilli again localizes in the intestinal lymphoid tissue or in mesenteric lymph node or in liver parenchyma, causing enlargement of the liver. Similarly, in spleen, there is a reactive hyperplasia causing enlargement of the spleen. Therefore, the liver enlargement and spleen enlargement is there in typhoid fever. So, morphologically, there is a oval typhoid ulcer in the long axis of bowel in Pierce passage. Microscopically, there is a hyperplasia and edema of the mucosa. Cellular proliferation is there. Besides this, bacterial food poisonings are caused by Staphylococcal, Clostridium welchii, Clostridium botulinus, and Salmonella paratyphi. Dysentery, there are two forms of dysentery. One is caused by a bacilli bacteria, Shigella dysentery, Sony, and flexneri. It is transmitted by fecal-oral route, of which vector is housefly. There is another type of dysentery called amoebic dysentery, that is caused by a parasite, Entamoeba histolytica, in large intestine. Cysts are ingested along with the food by the man. They reaches the mucosa and submucosa, where they produces a flask-shaped ulcer, and microscopically when you examine, ulcerated area shows chronic inflammatory cells from where trophozoite forms from the inflammatory urate is shed out from the body, and then it again develops in the cystic form outside of the body, and thus the cycle of this histolytica goes on. Besides this diarrhea, dysentery, this amoebic dysentery in the long run can cause amoebic liver abscess and amoebic hepatitis. This is all about the inflammatory lesions causing diarrhea and dysentery in the human beings. In the next class, we will study again the inflammatory lesions of the bowel, of which etiology is not known. Therefore, it is called idiopathic inflammatory bowel disease. Thank you.